Today we're diving into the dark and twisted world of one of America's most infamous serial killers, Ted Bundy. But instead of rehashing the well-known tales of his gruesome crimes, we're going to explore some of the lesser-known aspects of his life. These are the details that often get overshadowed by the sheer horror of his murders, but they're crucial to understanding the full picture of who Ted Bundy really was. So let's get to it. Most people know that Ted Bundy was born in Vermont in 1946 and raised by his grandparents, thinking his mother was his sister. But did you know about the emotional abuse he suffered as a child? His grandfather, Samuel Cowell, was a tyrannical figure, prone to violent outbursts and heavy-handed discipline. Neighbors reported hearing arguments and even animal abuse, which might have influenced Bundy's later behaviors. Bundy's mother, Louise, eventually moved to Tacoma, Washington, where she married John D. Bundy, a hospital cook. Ted took his stepfather's last name, but never felt close to him. In fact, Bundy despised Johnny, considering him uneducated and beneath him intellectually. This sense of superiority would manifest throughout his life and may have contributed to his ability to manipulate those around him. Ted Bundy was a master of disguise, not just in the physical sense, but in how he could seamlessly adapt to different social situations. He was a chameleon, able to blend in anywhere, from the halls of law schools to the offices of political campaigns. What's less known is how Bundy used these skills to gain access to his victims. Bundy didn't always rely on his infamous cast and crutches routine to lure women. In some cases, he presented himself as a harmless, even charming professional. He volunteered at a suicide hotline alongside the true crime author Anne Rule, who later wrote The Stranger Beside Me, about her experiences with Bundy. Rule described him as kind, empathetic, and caring, a far cry from the monster he would later become. This ability to present himself as trustworthy and benign was one of Bundy's greatest weapons. It allowed him to approach victims without raising suspicion, often in broad daylight and in crowded places where they should have been safe. Bundy even served as the assistant director of the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Commission, where he wrote a pamphlet for women on how to avoid rape. The irony is chilling, considering that he was already committing the very crimes he was advising women to protect themselves against. Ted Bundy is often labeled as a psychopath, and while that's accurate, it doesn't capture the full complexity of his psychological makeup. Lesser known is his potential diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. Bundy exhibited extreme narcissism, characterized by a grandiose sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and an insatiable need for admiration. Bundy's narcissism was evident in his courtroom behavior. He chose to represent himself during his trial, not because he believed he was the best person for the job, but because he relished the attention and believed he could outsmart everyone. He even cross-examined witnesses, including former police officers and victims, reliving his crimes in a perverse way. There's also evidence to suggest that Bundy was not as emotionless as he appeared. Some psychologists believe that he experienced intense rage and a deep sense of inadequacy, which he masked with his charm and superficial confidence. These feelings may have driven his need to control, dominate, and ultimately destroy his victims. Everyone knows that Ted Bundy escaped from custody twice, but what's less known is how meticulously he planned the escapes, and how they demonstrated his resourcefulness and cunning. The first escape occurred in June 1977, when Bundy was in custody in Aspen, Colorado. During a pre-trial hearing, he asked to use the law library, claiming he needed to research his case. The authorities, underestimating him, agreed. Bundy noticed a window in the library, which led to the roof, and began dieting to lose weight, so he could squeeze through it. On the day of his escape, he jumped from a second-story window and disappeared into the Colorado wilderness. He survived for 6 days on the run before being recaptured. His second escape in December 1977 was even more audacious. Bundy had been transferred to a jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Over several weeks, he saved up cash that had been smuggled in by friends and studied the jail's layout. He discovered that the ceiling of his cell was weak, and on December 30th, he climbed through a hole he had made, crawled through the ceiling, and emerged in a guard's apartment. Bundy changed clothes, walked out the front door, and caught a bus to Denver. From there, he flew to Chicago and eventually made his way to Florida, where he would commit his final murders. In the age of 24-hour news cycles and social media, it's easy to forget that Ted Bundy was one of the first criminals to use the media to his advantage. Bundy was acutely aware of his public image and went to great lengths to manipulate it. During his trials, Bundy conducted interviews with journalists, where he maintained his innocence and portrayed himself as a victim of a corrupt system. He even proposed marriage to Carol Ann Boone in the courtroom during his Florida trial, a move that was as much about gaining public sympathy as it was about legal strategy. Incredibly, Boone accepted, and Bundy later fathered a child with her while on death row.
Carol, you want to marry? And I want to marry you. Yes. And I do want to marry.
Bundy's charm and good looks earned him a strange kind of celebrity status. People wrote him letters, sent money, and attended his trials like they were social events. This fascination with Bundy wasn't just about morbid curiosity. It was a reflection of how easily a charismatic persona can manipulate public perception. Ted Bundy's reign of terror left an indelible mark on the American psyche, but it also taught us valuable lessons about the nature of evil and the flaws in our criminal justice system. Bundy's ability to blend in, manipulate, and escape justice exposed vulnerabilities that law enforcement has since worked to close. One of the biggest takeaways from Bundy's case is the importance of psychological profiling in understanding and capturing serial killers. Bundy's crimes also led to greater awareness of how dangerous individuals can exploit positions of trust and authority. Finally, Bundy's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating those who don't fit the typical mold of a criminal. Bundy was well educated, articulate, and came from a seemingly normal background. Yet beneath the surface, he harbored a darkness that shocked the world. And there you have it, the lesser-known side of Ted Bundy. It's a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of a killer. If you found this episode intriguing, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And as always, stay safe and stay curious.